let's move to Texas, south from Nebraska, and we are going to go to the Texas Panhandle, which is the northwest side of Texas, home of U.S. Beef, cattle, and dairy industry. Within about 100 miles of our location, bushland, very close to Amarillo, we have about 1/3 of U.S. beef cattle and a large presence of these dry lot type of feed yards. And we've been fortunate to work with one very typical type of a operation for this project. I wanted to acknowledge my great scientists at Bushland, Heather and Will Willis. Thank you. And next slide, please. So our feedlot, representative of the industry in this region, is about 30,000 head capacity. We are just about 1 year into the project. We started monitoring in June 24, and we plan to continue sometime through the second part of summer, this year at least. Traveling to the feedlot every 2 weeks, unless some weather event disrupts the schedule and access to the sites. We also are just about starting the quarterly intensive continuous sampling right now as we speak. We call it a spring season. We still have to do the summer. And we have been collecting, just like the other sites, quarterly, the soil and vegetation sampling. The little cross-sectional drawing on the right is basically testifying to the simplicity of the technology we use. Simple fence stakes driven to the ground with the pole, and just like you saw with Bobby's images, we used exactly the same type of a system. So it's amazing how well it works, considering how simple it is. Next slide, please. And here is the sort of close-up and cross-sectional view of the passive sampler that we are all using. The photo left corner top shows the plastic cylinder, the main body of the assembly, about 1 inch tall. And the key parts of that is on that photo, again, 2 white circles representing coated collection filters that are specifically extracting ammonia from air. And by the way, as part of the project and sort of method development for air quality sampling and analysis, we keep comparing those 2 filters on both sides of the assembly that are exactly the same time, same everything. And the measured concentration come typically within handful of percent, less than 5% most of the time. Next slide, please. So I will be showing the sort of hand-drawn, unfortunately, schematic with the measured concentrations later on of our geographical location of the actual feedlot, shown here with that rectangle in the middle of the slide, and then a series of 23 samplers that are located pretty much in all of the directions as far as 2 miles away to the north and just about 2 miles away to both south and east from the feedlot. So there are the sort of first closest line of these samplers is right at the perimeter of the feedlot, and then within about half a mile, and then a mile and 2 miles away. So next slide, please. And Bobby mentioned what happens next after we collect those filters. We bring them to the laboratory. In our case, it's our own here at Bushland. We do a very simple water-based extraction and an analysis on a plate. We call it a plate reader. And again, it's amazing how precise that method is. And we are so far very pleased with, again, simplicity of the approach and the quality of data that we are getting. I should also mention, besides the measured concentrations, we collect very precise environmental data, of which the three-dimensional wind velocity, wind directions are the most critical. Next slide, please. And those are a couple of pictures from how our terrain looks like. So this part of the country is very flat, so with occasional eroded canyons in the landscape. I really love to get out of the office and go there every occasion I have. It's great to be out there. Our probably biggest challenges are, or perhaps, I guess, kind of watch your back type of things. We've got rattlesnakes on the ground. Occasionally we get bad weather. About a month ago, we had dirt blowing at about 80 miles per hour here. But then most of the time, it's beautiful. Big open skies. You can bank on seeing deer, pheasants, coyotes, all sorts of birds, ducks. Last one I learned about and now can recognize is called lark bunting. So they all kind of live around in that ecosystem around the feedlot. Now, next slide, please. And then we do also our quarterly sampling, and very much like in the slides you've seen from Nebraska, our agriculture here is driven by groundwater, water. And so if you had an aerial view of the terrain, you would see a lot of those irrigated circles or half circles. Our sampling stations are typically on the corner of publicly accessible roads, and we are missing the actual irrigated crop circles. And those would be typically corn, some sorghum, winter wheat, and alfalfa. Next slide, please. So I will show a couple of slides that look very much like this. And this was our first summer last year. So now that map that I showed a couple of slides back has new information on it. Those rectangles, small text boxes that show measured, averaged measured per season, ammonia concentrations. And there is also a windrows with that colorful jets showing where on average wind was blowing over that entire season. So in this case, summer, very typical winds going from the south to the north. So if you pay a little bit closer attention to those numbers, showing ammonia concentrations. You will see that the northerly locations get more of the deposited ammonia as opposed to ones that are generally upwind to the south. Those would be at the bottom of that map. Next slide, please. It will be fall. So just a slightly different pattern to wind, and therefore slight shifts in those measured concentrations. But again, what you see is that sort of a footprint of where ammonia from this CAFO is being deposited and how far. By the way, this sampling station number 1 to the far left on the photo, which would be to the west, is our background site. So it goes about 19 parts per billion, but we get sites that are at the parameter of the feedlots that have, like number 16 here, 530 parts per billion. So there's quite a bit of range of measured concentrations. Next slide, please. Winter. So again, a lot more northerly winds, cold and wet sometimes, and that does change how that footprint also sort of migrates a little bit to the south, and there is more deposition or higher concentrations measured actually on the south. Next slide, please. And spring, which is still ongoing, few precious weeks. And again, wind, like in spring in these parts, is blowing all over the place. But you kind of get the idea that with that, ammonia will be going all sorts of directions from here. And next slide, please. And this is, again, compilation of entire almost 1 year of measurements that we've done so far with accompanying wind rows, showing again sort of a background site number 1, showing about 11, but then our typical, what I would call it, a hotspot, site number 16, having just under 500 ppb on average. Last slide, please. So next steps, we are planning to religiously complete our commitment to do 1 year of monitoring and all of the adjacent type of measurements that we do for soil, plant, and also intensive air quality monitoring. Aggregate the data that we have on the actual head count from the feedlot, provide the data to our ADAPT working group and our colleagues at US EPA that work with the US EPA CMAQ stage model. And of course, we would love to publish this as quick as we can. So with that, I would be happy to answer any questions.